My boyfriend saw something he can't explain, and neither can I. This story isn't a joke, trust me. I thought it was at first too. My boyfriend, 18-year-old male, saw something he can't explain. It was New Year's Eve and he was driving home after our date night, so it was around 1 a.m. I was laying in bed scrolling on my phone when I got a call from him. I didn't think anything of it, assuming he was calling because he was bored on his drive home or something. I answered kind of half asleep when he told me he just saw something terrifying and he didn't know what to do. He said, "Listen, I know this sounds insane, and I can't tell anyone else because no one will believe me, but I'm scared." Something you should know about my boyfriend is he does not get scared often. He's rational, he views everything with statistics and science. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. I thought he was just fucking with me. He was trying to scare me or something. I told him to explain what happened. I was driving down the interstate and I saw this deer, but it wasn't deer. It was fucking huge. At first I thought it was just a really big deer, but as I got closer I realized deer don't get that big. Elk don't even get that big. It was at this point that I realized he was telling the truth. His voice was shaking and he was talking frantically. I've never heard him that scared before. He continued. It was hunched over. It looked like a man, a really big fucking man, but it had deer antlers and fur all over it. I thought I was tweaking until I looked in my rearview mirror after I drove past it, and it was still there, and other cars were swerving away from it. That night he didn't sleep. He kept a loaded gun by his bed and watched the security cameras around his house all night. Last night we were talking about it again. As he was talking, his eyes were darting around. He would check behind us every 30 seconds or so. He gave me a better description of it. It stood about 8 feet tall. It looked like a man hunched over with his hands on the ground. It had a human face and massive deer antlers. Standing upright, it probably would have been about 12 feet tall. It was covered in fur and stood deer-like. It was standing on the side of the interstate, just watching the cars go by. Here is where shit gets wild. His house is about a mile from the interstate, some woods separating them. He's explored these woods before. He was telling me about a bridge in the woods that he's explored before, and it shouldn't technically be there. Every bridge in the state of Kentucky is registered with a serial number. This one wasn't. He described it like it looked brand new. There was no rust, the stone and metal was pristine. There was no graffiti. Under the bridge, there was a tunnel. This tunnel would logically be a drainage tunnel, but it was always bone dry. He doesn't know how long it is, but he knows it is at least 2 miles long. He said it has been a couple of years since he's been there, and he doesn't want to go back. He thinks that thing he saw is from there. He said bridges are supposed to be registered, but it isn't in the Kentucky registry. Everything about the bridge is just wrong, and something about it reminded him of the thing he saw on the interstate. He told me there's only been one other experience in his life that was like this one. It was right when he turned 17 and he was out alone hunting in the woods. If you've never been hunting before, you can see the woods wake up around you. As the sun rises, the birds wake up, the squirrels come out and run around, and the deer come out for dinner. He told me this time, nothing was there. The birds weren't chirping, there was nothing in sight. The leaves were still, there was no wind, everything was dead silent except the sound of his own breath. It was around noon and he decided something was off and left to go home. He told me he didn't think much of it then, but now it genuinely scares him to think of that day. Has anyone ever seen anything like this before? I don't know if it was a Wendigo or someone pulling a prank, but I know I've never heard my boyfriend sound like that before. I believe him. I believe there was something there that night that is unexplainable, and I need someone to confirm we aren't crazy. I need some sort of explanation.